Hi, it's Anne-Marie from Charmed Life Therapy, and I am here today with Joie, who's reached out to contact me to ask if I wanted to collab. And Joie is going to be starting at some point her own YouTube channel. So we're not going to delve too much into who she is, definitely what she's doing right now. She's going to figure that out for herself when she's ready to start and has a YouTube handle and all the rest of it. But yeah, she just reached out and we had like a nice little backwards and forwards and talked about our own feelings on it. And I just think it's going to be really helpful because it'd be like a fresh perspective for me because sometimes you get so bogged down in these documents that uh you kind of you can't be bothered with them any longer in a way. And for me personally, I go on my gut instincts with these things. It's like it's part of my job to kind of be a detective, so to pick up on the metaphors people use and stuff like that. And I think that's kind of what I bring to this. And sometimes I'm reading the legal jargon and my brain goes, la, 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 not very interested. So, yeah, I quickly recapped yesterday my first video on this just to remind myself, because Joey's going to say what her interest, how her interest sprang from this. And for me, right from the beginning, just watching that video over, apart from those first videos, which detail that every time I made a video, I was clearly struggling with either having a love my hair day or hate my hair day, because my hair is literally completely different on every single video. Some days it's definitely better than others. But other than that, it was my initial feelings was I didn't really, and my first video was January 19th when I uploaded it. So it was nearly what 3 weeks, 4 weeks into this thing. And my feeling at that point was that Justin had walked himself into it in some way, in terms of trying to be this male feminist and trying for it all to be through the female gaze and probably giving Blake too much power and all of that. And I talked about male and female roles and how I don't really class myself as a feminist because I'm more somebody that believes in women have strengths, men have strengths, and we should be complementing each other. And you can be a strong woman without having to emasculate a man, basically. And I felt he'd walked himself into it a little bit, um, even though all
I
along.
really agree with you on that, by the way.
Yeah. So that was where I started from. So I'm just gonna allow it to go over to Jo, and she can talk about how her interest was piqued with it as well.
Yeah, so what you were saying there before I kind of go on and do my preamble, I'll just say I really agree with you with what you're saying. Sometimes we're almost too frightened to say to our children, you know, oh, you know, play with dolls because you're a girl, and we want everything to be equal. But
Yeah.
also at the same time, if I had a son, then he can't physically give birth to there's certain things that are gender specific, and
Mm.
what we have to do is just respect each other. And
Yeah.
I like the term. My brother, he's passed away now, but he used to talk about being an egalitarian.
Right. Okay.
And it's having that respect for everybody. And
Yeah.
if you're so busy saying everybody's equal, then nobody's special.
Yeah. Yeah.
um
Exactly.
but with regards to this, my interest in the case, um I think it stirred up a feeling of unjustness with me.
Mm. Yeah.
And um I can remember the first time I probably started to do people's heads in with this. It was probably around like the 27th, 28th of December. We'd
Right.
gone to see Warhorse in Oxford, and I
Right.
was insisting on discussing it intently with my sister over a meal, and she was just like, "But who cares?" And I was like, "But we have to care. We all should
Yeah.
care." Because even at that early point, the overwhelming feeling I had was um, that if we all looked away, that something terrible was going to happen.
Mm.
That the only kind of thing that was stopping Justin being squished like a little bug was the
Mm.
fact that there were people there to bear witness.
Yeah, because if the public hadn't have jumped on board in the way and been willing to kind of look at his side of things, it would have gone really badly for him, really, wouldn't it? I think.
Yeah, I think by now everything would have been
And they'd
he'd have
need,
he'd have been forced into a settlement that was no good
yeah,
for him, because ultimately it was an unwinnable situation.
yeah,
And that really resonated with me. And I was just really drawn to it, and I was also really drawn to a lot of the content creators that
Hmm.
comment on it. And as time kind of went by, you know, people within, the different communities that I'm listening to, they identified themselves as being neurodivergent, and I'm neurodivergent, so that was quite
Yeah.
interesting. And I
I think it's
realized
everybody that's ever felt misunderstood or underrepresented, isn't it? And
100%. I think we're like a
yeah,
raggle-taggle bunch of social justice warriors that have just all
yeah,
said, like, that's not fair.
yeah.
And it's, I think people really identify with it quite strongly. And um, I reached out to you on, it was late, it was Monday,
Days
wasn't it?
ago,
It was
yeah.
after Isabella's response dropped,
Yeah, which
and
was
the outpouring of anger.
quite shocking, really, wasn't it?
It was, and people were very, very, very angry, understandably so,
Because
but
they'd been giving
also
her a lot of grace, hadn't they, so far? We'd given her an awful lot of grace.
I think people felt stupid and a bit
Mm,
duped.
yeah.
That's kind of how it, because people took that response very personally.
Mm,
Um, and I just think the fascination with the case is fascinating on its own, because I'd never heard of Justin
no,
Baldoni.
me neither. No, no, I didn't
You
know
know, so
anything.
you know, my one of the overwhelming things my sister's like, but why do you care? I don't know.
It's
I just do
funny, isn't it,
because
though? Because I was like you. I kept kind of talking to people, assuming they were aware of it. And they were like, no. And it's like, well, you know who Blake Lively is, don't you? And so many people didn't even know who Blake was. And I was like, I just thought people
you
just
all know who Ryan
they might
Reynolds
not have
was. You get to
watched
Ryan Reynolds
anything
and
of
there's a
hers, but I
mutual.
thought they would have known who she was. So then it was like, oh, well, I better just tell you everything. You know?
And then you don't want to tell people everything because you're like, oh, I'm so bored with this. Like, you've got to be
Yeah,
further in than this. You've got a responsibility to
yeah,
keep
yeah,
up to date
yeah.
yourself.
Well, yeah, because then you think, oh, I'm going to miss some crucial evidence as well because it's been going on so long, isn't it? It's you forget like a massive chunk. There's been so many like really revealing big chunks that it's like when you reminded me the other day about the dropping the Vin Diesel thing on the docket, I'd
Yeah.
like completely forgotten that. And it
At
was
least, at least, at least her own deposition was relevant. What the hell did that have to
yeah,
do with anything?
yeah, and it's just before we came on, I was saying kind of how in the last couple of days or so, I've noticed that language of uh, Lakeside accusing Justin of SH and others seems to keep coming back in now. And we were just saying that Etienne in the background, content creators were not allowed to, in their pro se arguments, say, and it's affecting anybody else, and there's a group of us. It was like, no, you can only kind of address your own situation. You can't talk on behalf of others. Yet Blake can seem to do this thing of and others. And we assume it's Jenny Slate, Isabella, because there weren't very little other women, weren't there, other than, like you say, Robin Lively for a day or so. So it's like, how does she get to say that and not refer to who she's talking about, even if it's in an anonymous sense, or that she's speaking with their permission or anything like that. But she gets to say that, and it, like you say, it goes out into the media and makes it look like he's the whole cast, every single female person there was vulnerable to him, doesn't
They
it?
were vulnerable to it, and also he is, and there's no redress for anything that's said in the course of litigation.
Mm,
So she can say anything else that she wants. She can say the most egregious things, but as long as her lawyer has said it, he's got
mm,
no legal redress, but it will be reported on as though it actually happened. And I
yeah,
was saying to you, like, it really bothers me that there's no moral responsibility or legal responsibility to have to say, I allege. You just say,
yeah,
you did this.
yeah.
And
It's
then
just one word, isn't it? That's all it'll take, really. Allege.
but, it's, whereas, at least the content creators, they prefix everything with they say so. But yeah, I guess we should say, by the way,
Yeah,
all
or it's
this is
my
just our own personal
opinion, or
opinion
yeah, yeah,
and just for fun. But at least people in that sphere have been doing that, whereas her own team don't seem to do that at all. It's just, no, this happened, but
yeah.
we don't think it did.
Yeah, I noticed as well when I was briefly watching Perez this morning and he was talking about what was happening in Nevada, and she's I don't know the docket number in Nevada. I've not gone down that rabbit hole yet. But her response has landed, and I've
Yes, I
got
saw that.
promotion, of course. But what I noticed was interesting was that she refers to the content. She says she's barely got anything from content creators. And I thought, well, that's because you dismissed most, you kind of retracted most of them, isn't it? But I guess she's holding out on Popcorn Planet and people like that and Candice. But what
We
she
haven't heard anything from Candice either. That's quite interesting.
no, yeah, and I think she'll leave it till she absolutely demands her to compel because
Yeah, I mean, she's
she doesn't even,
she's
she's
got bigger
not
problems at the
interested in
moment.
dealing with Blake Lively because she thinks she's irrelevant, doesn't she? Basically, in a
She
way.
does, and obviously she's got at the moment. She's very distracted with the
Yeah,
Macron case.
Macron. Yeah. But yeah, what was revealed? How she, I thought it was rather telling. She refers to content creators when she's talking about what information she has and hasn't got, and she's kind of saying these unwitting content creators that are unwittingly contributing to a narrative, and it's like, how dare you,
So
lady?
patronising.
How dare you? The people.
We're so unintelligible that we're not even responsible for our own thoughts now.
No, but I mean, it's like the amount of hours people have spent researching this stuff in order to do the content that they're
Oh,
doing.
100%. And that's why I know that I trust, you know, Lauren's opinion more than I'd ever trust anybody
Mm,
that's reporting on this case because I know that Lauren's read everything. So she's
yeah.
coming from a place of having information. So you can't say that we're unwitting because actually we're probably the only other people other than her her, legal team that have read it all.
Everybody that's making content has made a decision, hasn't they, to commit to this thing. It's like those early videos of mine, and I think I checked out the first 10 just very quickly, and everyone I'm saying, I didn't think I'd still be talking about this. I didn't think I'd still be talking about this. I can't believe I'm making another video. I wasn't committing to 70 plus videos about this
I
thing.
know, and it's there's moments in this where um you just think, well, I didn't see that coming, or I didn't. And generally, life's quite predictable, and these cases generally are quite banal, and they have a trajectory of their own, and it hasn't stuck to that. So that's kind of intriguing on its own. And you know, I think so much of it is it just keeps stirring up that sense of injustice. And I remember um when Justin's complaint got dismissed and
Oh, that was a
how
bit devastating.
dejected
Yeah.
everybody felt because it was almost like a personal loss.
Everybody was completely flat, weren't they? Yeah, and
And for
struggling.
those of us that are following the Karen Reid case as well,
Hmm.
um, it was just this massive feeling of like injustice, and you can be right and you can still lose, and it's not life isn't always fair, and
Yeah,
you're dealing with when you're dealing with the elites and the one percenters, then they just squish you like a bug.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's
yeah.
sometimes, as my dad often talks about the law of unforeseen consequences.
Hmm.
Actually, it does seem that his case being dismissed has worked out thoroughly in his best interests. I
Yeah.
think once he's proved his own,
I did say when that first happened, I think this might actually be a better thing that to just focus on the defense because it works better as a defense than as an attack.
I think as well, in the letter that we're about to discuss, I think it really does hint at the fact that there may be an appeal.
Yeah,
And, you know, people have said, oh, well, he may not want to after all of this. He may just want to put it behind him. He might, but I think he's fighting for a higher thing here.
I almost don't think he can put it behind him because looking at Isabella and that, I thought I can see a lawsuit there over her, that she'll bring a lawsuit against him. His insurance companies are suing him. I feel like he has no choice at this point but to take it as, and it's like I think without a crystal ball alluded to yesterday that it something that triggered her mind in the document was that sounds like it might be going to appeal over the New York Times even.
Yeah.
So I think, oh, and I tell you
Once
what
they've got
else.
all the Van Zandt stuff out. I think
Yeah.
then he's going to
I
be in a
think it's
stronger
going to
position.
be. It's like I've said all along. It's like it feels bad on the surface, but I feel like they're quietly working away in the background, and we just don't know about it. And it's a massive spreadsheet of every comment on the thing or
And the
whatever.
last thing, there's no point in appealing under Lyman, because
No.
whether he's compromised in terms of legally or in terms of what they can prove,
Mm.
he's not able to separate, it seems, his feelings for Bryan Freedman and how he then feels about the
No.
Wayfarer Party.
No.
He's
Yeah.
not he's not impartial.
It's like at this point, you think, how is Ezra Hudson not equally as enraging as Bryan Freedman if you were
And
just an
Gottlieb,
independent person? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
it's how you can say, oh well, you're doing this for PR. No, they're all doing it for
Mm.
PR.
Yeah.
And you know it's just there's I don't know why. I don't know
Yeah.
why Judge Lyman is making the rules that he's making the rulings, because even when they're only citing cases of his own and they're
Mm.
still going against them,
Yeah,
it
yeah,
defies logic.
yeah, it does, yeah. It's
I
probably
and
annoyed that they're bringing up every past decision he's ever made.
But then don't be a judge. Like you're
Yeah,
sometimes I think when people get to such a high position, they forget that they're there to serve.
yeah,
My
yeah.
background is a long time ago, I used to be a nurse. And one of the first things they ever said to us is it's a privilege.
Hmm.
And he's the same. And I
Yeah.
think he's forgotten that.
Well, they're officers of the court. They are the court in human form, aren't they, basically? Yeah.
Yeah. And when you put your trust in these people, so from a personal interest of mine is I
As a
spent
nurse, you can literally have a person's life in your hand on a split
yeah,
second, can't you?
you can I would treat people in handcuffs.
Hmm.
You'd have prisoners and stuff come in. But you can't allow the way that you feel about them to affect how you everybody deserves,
Hmm.
compassion and empathy and to be just treated with some dignity. But
Hmm.
one of the things that again really drew me to this court case was um so when this was first back in the news, I was going through yet another round of family litigation. I've gone through 3 rounds,
Wow, right.
which is exhaustingly expensive in
Hmm.
every sense of the term. It reduces, my mental energy because I'm expending it all on that, my financial because I'm having to spend it all on that. And I didn't bring these cases, I didn't do anything to deserve them.
Hmm.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
And it was very unjust. And when you were talking there about officers of the court and their responsibilities to do that, during the course of the proceedings, I've had people behave in ways that were they didn't follow their ethical line.
Yeah.
And I think definitely that's not happening with Blake Lively and her team, because her team have forgotten that yes, as legal professionals, you have to advance your client's case vigorously and as difficult as you can, but that still comes secondary to your primary responsibility, which is to the court. And they've forgotten that, because otherwise they would never have done Van Sham.
It's a funny thing, isn't it? It's like I was saying the other day to do with my coursework that I'm currently doing. And it was referring to somebody who'd had some kind of accident, I think, where the emotional part of the mind had kind of come disconnected in a way, and it was saying that you can't disconnect emotion and logic, because if you only have logic, then you have no emotional feeling about the steps, so you can't make a decision because there's no feeling attached to which step to do, or the how to put them in order. But that's the thing about the law, isn't it? They ask you, no, you have to keep it to the legal argument. It has to be factual. I'm not interested in your emotions. Yeah, at the same time, we're human beings and we have a feeling that affects even how we interpret the law, don't we? So
Yeah. And I think sometimes judges forget that when they're issuing rulings.
yeah, yeah,
And there are serious consequences. They're often issuing these things where people go to prison, or they one parent loses custody, or you
Mm.
know or positions that may bankrupt people, and it's all with the flick of a wrist and the bang of a
Mm.
gavel. But
Yeah.
these are serious life-changing ramifications, and I think when you don't feel that you can rely upon the justice system to be fair and impartial, I
Mm.
think then society starts to break down, and you
Yeah.
start to have situations like the Adelson case that I was mentioning to you,
Yeah.
because those people felt that they had no legal redress. Now, they were wrong. You
Mm.
never take the law into your hands. You can't go around offing people. So
No.
whatever happens now, that's their consequences, and they
Yeah.
have to live with that.
Life goes off the rails remarkably easily, doesn't it, really?
It does.
And
And
especially when we have that herd mentality thing going on and we're picking up off each other as well.
that echo chamber. Oh no, but
Yeah.
you're great. No, you're great. No. And
Mm.
actually, what two of my closest friends, that one of the things I value about them the most is that they're both never frightened to say to me, why would you even think that? That's so incredibly stupid.
Yeah.
And they will give me really hard feedback. And
Yeah.
one of them, it's come now into like law, like family law, where we laugh at it, where it's just, we'll say it to each other now, just at like really inopportune moments. Where once I was crying to her and she said to me, I just can't take you seriously. You look so ugly when you cry.
Oh,
um, I guess I did look quite ugly in that moment,
oh
but
no.
but you can't live in that echo chamber where everyone's saying to you, this is a great
No.
idea.
Yeah. And
Maybe
sometimes
not that blunt of a
that
feedback.
kind of actually reminds me of like because basically I started this channel to talk about hypnosis, subconscious healing, and the rest of it. But what you said there is actually what we might term like sometimes the best thing you can do in hypnosis and to make you go deeper and to actually follow it up with something positive is to give you a shock. So
Yeah,
somebody
it's
says
like
something
it's
like
almost
that
like a
to you,
mental
it's like
slap.
boom, and
Yeah,
then you'd have been laser focused on the very next thing they said.
yeah.
Because when you get a shock, your subconscious mind goes and is open wide. So whatever follows that, you take in right to the heart of you, kind of thing.
We'll
So
have to come back to that
yeah, up you're frozen.
off camera, because I've got
Yeah.
loads to tell you about that.
All
Not,
right.
but
Okay.
like, I'd love to pick your brains. Um,
But
Definitely.
I get. Shall we
And I
bring up this
think poor
topic?
Justin, he's going to have to do a lot of healing.
Yeah.
He's going to
Oh,
have to do so
well,
much healing after
I
this.
imagine he's doing that as we go. I imagine that's why he went to Hawaii and he was only doing minimal whatever he had to
I
do or
hope so,
whatever.
but I don't. One of the things I've found is I don't think you can heal while the trauma's ongoing,
Hmm.
because you're still in that
Bubble.
situation where the cortisol keeps coming, the adrenaline still keeps going.
Hmm.
Um, Things are still quite triggering.
Probably sleeping in one of those, them things they put you in where you're in salted water and it's dark and
Oh
you're
God, yeah, with
I can't think what it's called at night.
sensory
Every night,
deprivation.
every night it gets.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like, well, we laugh, but actually what I'm sitting in here is like everything in my house is set up around like the kids being
Yeah,
neurodivergent. So I'm actually sitting in one of those office booths that you have, where like it's like a breakout space. We
yeah,
have this so that when one of the kids is really overwhelmed, we can just sit them in this and throw a blanket over the top like a
yeah,
bird.
yeah, yeah.
Not like without their permission, but
No,
they
no,
just want to
yeah,
get away from each other sometimes because it's too much stimulation.
yeah. I can understand that.
And
Yeah,
if you know actually going through these battles in your personal life is incredibly painful, but God, imagine going through this and having millions of people talking about it. And that's why I have such
I think it.
my heart bleeds for Jen Abel.
Yeah, yeah. I think so. I think I like Brianna Case and Brianna Coslow and Katie Case, and that it's like they're so minimally involved and yet being put through the ringer over and over and over again. And it's so vicious, I think. I noticed like from this filing that we'll bring it up and go through it. The number of times when Freedman has put this together, it's very clever because it focuses your attention on the recurring language, doesn't it, that's being used. And the amount of times billionaire friend, billionaire Steve Sarowitz. And I think this is Ryan Reynolds. He is so effing jealous that Steve Sarowitz is a
Because
billionaire.
he thought he could just walk all over everyone. And I think they can't believe, I think he's incredulous that it hasn't gone the way that he thought it would.
Yeah, but he wasn't the main power player, the one with the money, all the money.
Oh, I 100% do believe that. But and
And,
what you're saying about being like tangentially involved, I 100% agree with that. But where it goes back to Jennifer Abel is like one of the things I've always said is like, if I die, could you just wipe my phone, please?
oh, right.
Because I Google random stuff. It'll be 3 o'clock in the morning,
Yeah.
and
Oh
I'll
God, me
and
too. Yeah.
like a thought will come into my head, and I'll Google that, and I'll think, oh, I hope that hasn't put me on like some terror watch list or something,
Yeah.
because it'll be a random thought, and obviously information is at the tip of our fingers.
Yeah.
So if I was Jennifer Abel, I'd be thinking, what did I Google? What else can they know, or
That's kind
what?
of
How can it be used against me? What else can they do to
that's
humiliate me?
that's kind of what I said. I think at some point or other, somebody took like my search history on my texts. I mean, sometimes I Google things to do with Bonnie Blue and what have you, because trying to
Yeah, it might just
understand
be something a
her
client
perspective
said.
on the world. You know what I mean? And it makes you look like you're searching porn sites and the
Yeah,
rest of it, doesn't it? You know what I mean?
also maybe she did, also that's it's not unhealthy, and but
Yeah.
how could that be used against you? And
Mm.
I would just be very, very, I
Well,
feel
yeah,
for her.
because I think that was particularly pervasive, this idea of using Justin's own language and this idea of him lying about all of his feminist ideologies and all of that.
Completely
And
violating. They've stepped over
yeah.
so many lines
Mm,
that, if this is what you have to do to win, then
mm,
I don't want to win. I don't want to become
yeah.
you. You are
Well,
disgusting people.
that is what I try and bring it back to, that she's, well, I know she doesn't want to be pitied and I don't want to pity her. Pity's not useful in a way, but you do pity somebody who's like, I would not want to live in that head if that's your view on the light on the world, basically. I know it wouldn't matter all the money and all the rest of it.
Can you imagine the atmosphere in their house?
Mm,
It must be very, very tense.
mm. Oh,
And
that's
I would
what
imagine there's a lot of resentment between her and Ryan.
and that's what you think, isn't it? It can't help but translate to her children. So what's most important here? That's what I've said time and again. Why start this at Christmas when you know that's going to be all over your family Christmas, unless you were wanting to wreck his Christmas, if that was more important, you know what I mean?
But then if you're so fixated on destroying that other person that you're like a suicide bomber, that
Mm,
you're willing to destroy your own children's Christmas to
yeah,
ruin his,
yeah,
babe, you've probably gone too far. I think
yeah.
maybe you need to
You know,
go away to a
I'll
little
start in
retreat.
January or get the holiday over, wouldn't you? Or
And
some.
I've been that angry. I have, truthfully, and that's
Mm,
why I'm drawn to this case. And um, it culminated in me having a varicose bleed. I ended up having.
right.
I was very ill. I ended up bursting a blood vessel in my
Oh,
stomach, and
right. Okay.
I was only. It was a week before my 40th birthday,
Right.
and I realized after that that I could win and still lose.
Yeah.
And I also realized that they weren't my chips to hold anymore. I'm a mum and I've got a kid.
Yeah.
And um, my anthem for the end of that was, do you know the Kenny Rogers song, The Gambler?
Oh, yeah, I like that
And you
song.
got to know when to
Brilliant. Yeah.
hold them and when to
When
fold
to
them. And the
fold
thing I
them.
couldn't do was
Yeah.
walk away.
Yeah.
And I've had to learn to do that over the last few years. And I can now. I'm like,
Oh, I'm like a child of six, and I kind of am pretty much estranged from all five of them. And it's not like they're terrible people, but they just don't understand me. And every time I have contact with them, I come away feeling like I've been narcissistically abused, even though I don't know if you could call it narcissism, but that's what it feels like. It feels like it messes with my energy. You know what I mean? Like I'm forced to be a certain way in order to be accepted by them. You know, that
yeah,
kind of
that's hard.
feeling. And like if I interact on their level, it feels like me being passively aggressive. It feels like not being who I am because it's like they just want to keep it on the surface. And
You just have to lose.
yeah, they want you to just, if they ask, are you okay? They don't want to hear anything other than, oh yeah, I'm great. So it's like, what's the point?
Yeah. I agree with you, and it's those have been some really hard lessons I've had to learn over the last
Hmm,
3 years or so. And when court finished last for me in February, and I luckily we've been granted an order, so there'll be no more
Hmm.
court for the next two
No
years.
more. No more.
But for 2 years. Um, and basically it's like we'll go away and get on.
Yeah.
And the last thing I felt like was doing that.
Well, there's
But
an aftermath, isn't there? There's like a come down.
I'll never hate anybody more than I love my daughter.
Hmm.
So, you do just have to walk away because, like I said, if that's what you have to do to win, I don't want to win.
No.
And I feel like people should sometimes remember that, I think, a little bit when they're talking about how, if you're sending messages to people, DMs that are being incredibly intrusive and rude, I
Hmm.
don't think you're living by the ethos of Wayfarer, who are very
Yeah.
principled people who, you know, I was in awe of the messages that they released of Justin the other day.
Hmm.
He's clear, that's clearly who he is.
He's never wanted to hurt her. He's never
No.
wanted to be in a position of hurting her.
He sort of reminds me of like where he's like, "Don't make me punch you in the face. I don't want to hurt you." Like it's that really hard position, and or
Yeah.
where you say to your, I don't know if you've got children, but where you're like, "Oh, look, just behave. I don't want to have to tell you off,"
Mm, yeah.
and because there's going to be
No, it's
consequences.
me and Etienne have that relationship. It's like she ran off the other day, and I'm like, oh no, this is like, I know, like it's better if I don't like tell her off when she comes back. She's less likely to do it again. But I'm really seething angry.
Yeah, it's hard. And I think it starts with us as human beings and how we interact and how we get that feedback. It starts when we're young. Now,
Mm,
me and my daughter, we always talk about, and we have this term, it's called the woman in the lift.
yeah, right.
And it's a ridiculous story that dates back to like 2.5 years ago, where we'd been to Universal Studios and everybody had a really long day.
Mm.
And I have really bad oppositional defiance. So if somebody tells me
Oh,
not to do something, I immediately want to do it.
yeah.
And we got back to the hotel, and this woman was barring anybody from getting in the lift apart from her family,
Wow, right,
which
yeah.
means I, of course, immediately walk in.
Yeah.
And she didn't like that. And so me and her ended up having crosswords.
Yeah. In an
And,
elevator.
my daughter was embarrassed. She was like, Mom. And afterwards, she said to me, but why did she behave like that? Why did she think
Mm,
that she could do that? I said, well, clearly she felt that her and her family were more important than everybody else that was waiting for the lift.
yeah.
They were tired, but everybody was tired. It'd been a long day for everybody.
Yeah.
And it sort of became the parable of the woman in the lift, which
Yeah.
is like, you know, I tell you off and teach you that everybody is equal because I don't want you to be an asshole like the woman in the lift.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
occasionally, we'll see somebody doing something really selfish and she'll be like, and she'd turn out like the woman in the lift, wouldn't she, if they didn't tell her off? And I'm like, yes, Rose.
The thing is, the moral there as well is if there was some kind of physical reason or that they all happen to be very susceptible to allergens or something,
Yeah.
you speak up and say why you need some
Mhm.
special consideration. Don't be afraid if you have a genuine need to put it out there, but yeah, don't trample all over everybody else just for
Yeah,
no
because
reason.
equal doesn't mean identical.
Yeah,
Like that's why we have disabled toilets. And
yeah,
actually, I have a radar key because sometimes I need to use disabled toilets because
right.
I've got a hidden disability. I've got a blue badge. And sometimes people give me dirty looks when I use them.
I'm
But
just
if they
laughing because
said
I'm being photobombed.
hello, and but that's that thing, isn't it? Like if if I need the toilet, if I need that toilet, then you know I've had it where
You
we
need to
we were
be
in a
like
theatre.
that, don't you? You need to be there and then it's
Yeah, it's and I just said to people that because they were using the disabled toilet, and I said, look, I've got a blue badge. Here's my radar kit. Does anybody mind if I use it? Because there was a really long queue for that one, and I was like, I can't
yeah.
wait. But yeah, you just behave like a normal person.
Yeah,
And whereas, there's no justification for being like, I need this lift.
no. Whereas Blake Lively's like, I need this entire shop.
And your production company and this film, and I'll just take
Yeah,
everybody's wallets as well.
yeah.
Throw your rings
And
in while we're at it.
you protected director's time in the editing suite. I'll have that too.
all of her though. I can't
Yeah.
imagine being that self-absorbed. She makes my toes
Yeah,
crawl
because I
with
think
like
we just naturally put ourselves in that position of God, what if I had to deal with that? What would I do? And you'd be lost.
I
There's,
don't even like to have the last, if if say like, you're sharing some chips with someone, I don't even want to have the last chip because I feel like, oh, I'm being really
yeah,
greedy. I can't ever imagine being like, yeah, I'm going to lock you out of your own film.
yeah, yeah. Well, your chips won't be good enough for Blake Lively, so you wouldn't have that worry for
That's
it.
true. That's true. She doesn't look like a woman that enjoys many French fries.
Well, she claims to eat just whatever she likes, doesn't she? I think, which that tends to enrage the general public when you claim to be a person that can eat whatever they
You've
like.
got bulimia. That's really the only other way that I could see you eat that
Yeah,
much.
yeah.
Like it's mathematics. It's you can't maintain
No,
a severe spelt
and I think
failure.
especially when you've had 4 kids, because there's a natural solidity that comes with that. Your body, even if you stay fit, you're more solid, aren't you, than you were before. There's no getting away from that, really, is there? I don't think,
No,
unless you're incredibly genetically blessed in some way. I think.
but even then, I think you reach that point in life where after puberty kicks in. I've just been reading Jeanette McCurdy's "I'm Glad My Mum Is Dead."
All right, yeah,
It's
yeah,
a great title, and she talks
yeah.
about her shared eating disorder that her mum gave her when she got to puberty,
Mm.
to try and keep her staying small and
Oh God,
so she'd
yeah,
get more roles. It's horrible,
yeah.
but again, she's not someone that's saying like, oh, I could eat whatever I want and stay 89 pounds.
Yeah, yeah. Right, let's bring up this document then.
Yes,
So
let's.
I'm gonna screen share. I've no idea what time it is or how long we've been doing this.
Oh, we can always cut it down.
Yeah, so except it's been really good. I think it's been really interesting.
I hope
So,
so.
so yeah, I think so. I think people out there are just looking for people to share their feelings about all of this because we are all having that a similar kind of shared experience with it all. And I think just the more voices, the more perspective, the more shared stories of why we come to it, I think
Yeah,
is really useful. Um, so can you see that okay?
I can. Let me just see if I can zoom in a bit more.
So hopefully this is showing up on the recording. I assume it is. I don't really know how this works, but I'll start reading through it. If we can speed through it a bit faster, I will. But so this is
Okay.
basically Bryan Freed. The docket is so out of whack now, isn't it? Because this is basically, we've been waiting for this for forever. I mean, the judge hasn't ruled on anything to do with Leslie Sloan's expenses claim, or there's so much now at this point that we're waiting for answers on, isn't there? So
Loads.
this is Bryan Freedman saying, no, you can't sanction me for speaking out on behalf of my client. Basically, you can't bring in this rule 3.6 because whatever I'm doing is not tainting a jury pool, blah, blah, blah. So, in her latest effort to curtail opposing counsel Bryan Freedman's speech and chill his ability to effectively defend his clients, plaintiff Blake Lively now seeks a laundry list of sanctions under Rule 3.6 of the New York Rules of Professional Conduct. A lawyer has a right, indeed an obligation, to defend his or her client, even in the press. Ms. Lively nevertheless insists that Mr. Freedman was the architect of a far-reaching scheme to smear. That word smear must be elevated in the dictionary at this point. Ms.
Never heard
Lively.
it so much as this year.
No, smear, no. Ms. Lively points to 10 statements in which Freedman questioned the validity of Ms. Lively's claims, addressed the possibility that Ms. Lively would continue her deposition, which she did, and referred to Ms. Lively as a Hollywood elite, which does sound like an insult,
Which
doesn't
she
it?
is.
Which of course she is, having worked her whole career to become one. Ms. Lively contends that Rule 3.6 applies because Mr. Freedman's statements challenge her character, credibility, or reputation. I love what they've said during this about her reputation. Ms. Lively misconstrues 3.6, which does
Oh,
not
I
bar.
think it's come off the screen. I think you just need to move the screen.
Is it just
No, it's going back up. I just can't see the next bit where you move down.
all right? It might be the difference if you're on a phone or you're an
Oh,
Android.
okay, maybe, yeah.
Let's see. Um, just do your best and let me know if you
Yeah,
struggle
sure.
on
I'm at the
this.
bottom of page 4.
Right, okay. So, where were we? Miss Lively misconstrues Rule 3.6, which does not bar public statements by counsel, even statements critical of an opposing party. 3.6 bars only those statements that create a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing an adjudicative proceeding in the matter. The chief failing in Ms. Lively's motion is the underlying assumption that any statement that touches on a party's character, credibility, or reputation automatically triggers a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing the words an adjudicative proceeding in the matter and therefore violates 3.6. This is not the case. Nevertheless, Ms. Lively glosses over the threshold requirement sanctions, which is that the negative, it says publicly, I think that should read publicity,
Yeah,
which is
yeah,
that the
publicity.
negative publicity creates a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing the adjudicative. that's added to my list of words I struggle to pronounce. Adjudicative proceedings. Ms. Lively deftly sidesteps this requirement with the single conclusory statement that this court should impose sanctions here because Mr. Freedman's statements pose a significant risk of tainting the jury pool with deceptive, corrosive, and untrue statements cloaked with an illusion of loyalty, integrity. It's like every time she makes these statements about her feelings, you can imagine her foot stomping in a Louboutin heel at the same time.
I can imagine that every time anything goes wrong, she's on the phone to Ezra, and Ezra's like, "Oh God, this woman! Oh God!" Like, and I can imagine what they really want to say to her is, "I think you need a therapist.
Yeah.
Like, phone a therapist because actually this is not really a legal matter."
I think this is why we can't have access to those medical records, though, because it would just be entirely telling. You suspect there's a diagnosis on her medical records?
Not necessarily. Um, I think she may need one. But I think often people that are behaving like this are, it wouldn't surprise me if there's something like borderline personality disorder, but it doesn't sound like she's ever been in a position where she's needed to be diagnosed because she's always managed to maintain a level of civility from
Yeah.
what we've seen.
Well, she's always, I think her modus operandi has always been to be flirtatious and fun and bubbly and light, and that's worked
And
with the
then, yeah, and then
majority of
manipulate and
people.
threaten.
Yeah, yeah. Be one thing to one person and another thing to the what should
Her
classes.
looks are waning now. It's not going to keep working for her.
No,
And I think, you know,
I think that's been part of the problem all along is that she feels like this is a final push to be credible.
oh, she missed that boat.
So Ms. Lively does not argue, much less provide any evidence that Freedman's statements are likely to taint the jury. Ms. Lively does not enlighten on the significant risk or explain how comments made 8 to 11 months prior to trial could pose a significant risk of materially prejudicing the jury. And later on, much of the case law that they state in that is all about that previous cases have not had a problem from months
Yeah.
gap between what has come up, what's been said by lawyers and the jury verdicts.
They managed to find a jury for P. Diddy. I think they'll be all right here.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that just tells you everything, doesn't it, really? So particularly here, where the jury pool consists of literally millions of residents in the New York metropolitan area, Ms. Lively simply ignores the need for temporal proximity. So I did put a comment there. Temporal proximity, basically the nearness in time of two events, basically to establish the requisite risk of prejudice. Instead of enlightening on the risk of potential prejudice, Miss Lively myopically, and the thing that came into my mind, I thought that was such a good word, myopically, because the first thing that came to mind was Mr. Magoo. If you know Mr.
Okay.
Magoo. Blake Lively's there, like, only Blake just laser focus.
Yeah, she just hyper focuses on the wrong things.
Yeah. So Ms. Lively myopically focuses on the second part of the analysis, namely whether Mr. Freedman's comments relate to Ms. Lively's credibility, character, or reputation, which may ordinarily create a prejudice, an analysis that is unnecessary absent a showing of a substantial risk of materially prejudicing the adjudicative process. Ms. Lively's failure to demonstrate a substantial risk of material prejudice alone dooms Ms. Lively's latest request for sanctions against the latest request.
Latest request, exactly. Like, oh my God, here we go again. I'll take over for a minute.
We have a whole long list.
I know.
Moreover, even assuming that Ms. Lively's silence is sufficient to establish a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing an adjudicative proceeding flowing from any statement made by Mr. Freedman, the cited statements fall under Rule 3.6's explicit exceptions, including, among others, the exception for statements a reasonable lawyer would believe are required to protect a client from the substantial prejudicial effect of recent publicity not initiated by the lawyer or the lawyer's client.
And that's the key bit there, isn't it? Not initiated by the lawyer or the lawyer's client.
Yeah, which is necessary to mitigate the recent adverse publicity.
So shall I take over reading for a bit?
Yeah, if you want to, just let me know when you want me to move. Yeah.
Okay, in this vein, Miss Lively conveniently ignores her own counsel's very public campaign to savage the defendant and their counsel in the public eye. Miss Lively similarly ignores that she was a highly divisive figure long before Mr. Freedman came on the scene. Discord on the set with It Ends With Us set attracted media attention while the film was still in production. Public and media interest spiked when Miss Lively encouraged cast and crew members to defriend or unfollow Mr. Baldoni on social media. From Mr. Baldoni through Mr. Baldoni.
Froze Mr. Baldoni,
Froze, sorry. I'm reading it on the phone. That's ever so slightly harder. Out of the advertising campaign for the film he produced, directed, and starred in, and banished him and his family to the basement in the film's premiere in August 2024. It's a bad look, Blake. Bad look.
Can I move it up a bit, please? Is that all right?
Yeah, sure. Long before Mr. Freedman was engaged in late December 2024, Ms. Lively herself poured fuel on the fire when she and her counsel provided a draft of her CRD complaint to the New York Times before it was filed. Miss Lively's post-litigation conduct has done nothing to endear her to the public, the press, or content creators. A recent barrage of subpoenas has angered and alienated those already critical of Miss Lively, forcing a number of them to seek this court's intervention.
Yeah.
Blissfully tone deaf to her own conduct, Miss Lively is not only unwilling to accept that her own celebrity and actions have generated the media frenzy she now complains of and the weight of negative publicity against her, she conveniently ignores that while she and her counsel have been less than shy about publicly bashing Mr. Freeman and the Wayfarer defendants in the press, nevertheless, Miss Lively seeks monetary sanctions, attorney fees, a reprimand, and revocation of Mr. Freedman's pro hac vice admission for statements primarily relating to whether Miss Lively would appear at a deposition and the falsity of her claims.
Yeah, you're all right there.
Yeah.
In short,
as explained below, Rule 3.6 does not, as Miss Lively argues, render any public statement by a lawyer sanctionable, while statements that relate to a party's character, credibility, reputation may be ordinarily so I guess we're saying garden variety, to create prejudice. So garden variety prejudice, and statements also create a substantial risk of materially prejudicing the adjudicating proceedings. In other words, ordinarily does not translate to absolutely.
Yeah, I think later on they specified the different courts in different jurisdictions, the difference between that. Ordinarily is not absolutely, isn't it?
Absolutely. And the fact that statements may relate to a party's character, credibility, or reputation does not abrogate the requirement that there be a substantial risk of material prejudice to an adjudicating proceeding. And I think what we're saying there is, if people's history and stuff and character has no relevance, that's ridiculous, because otherwise then, well, if somebody's got a history of, crying rape 10 times, Peter and the Wolf, cry wolf, then, well, they're going to, that goes into people's assessment as to the risk factor and whether it actually happened.
Yeah.
So of course that has to be brought into. But what she wanted was to tank his character, his career,
Mm.
so that he could never fight back.
And have nobody look at hers.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
didn't. She didn't. She thought it was a kill shot, and it wasn't.
yeah, yeah. Do you want to continue for a bit?
Uh, I'll let you take over because it's quite hard on the phone.
Okay, as elaborated below, Ms. Lively's motion should be denied because one, Ms. Lively fails to show that Mr. Freedman's statements raised a substantial risk of materially prejudicing the jury, and two,
And two,
and
and
two,
two.
both I seem to be echoing two, the statements identified by Ms. Lively fall into Rule 3.6's express exceptions for statements concerning the claim, offence, or defence, information in a public record, scheduling matters, and most importantly, statements that a reasonable lawyer would believe is required to protect a client from the substantial prejudicial effects of recent publicity, not initiated by the lawyer or the lawyer's client to mitigate the recent adverse publicity. There's a lot of repetition, isn't there, in these things? So, factual and procedural background, the history of publicity relating to Ms. Lively, and it ends with us. Ms. Lively is a celebrity, I like this bit, who, for whatever reason,
That's some shade there.
Has long, who knows? Who understands that? Has long been a magnet for media attention.
Oh, hang on. She did get that Teen Choice Award once.
Yeah. during, during production of the popular film It Ends With Us, well before the alleged smear campaign, rumours of discord on the set were swirling. By August 24, roughly the time when the film was released, the rumour mill about troubles on set were already receiving significant media attention, and both sides had retained public relations consultants, as would be normal. Public scrutiny of Ms. Lively's conduct accelerated after she urged her followers to defriend or unfollow Justin Baldoni on social media, froze Baldoni out of the marketing campaign for the film he produced, directed, and starred in, and banished Mr. Baldoni and his family to the basement during the premiere. Ms. Lively points to a chart showing an increase in negative publicity beginning in early August 2024. Etienne, stop chewing my chair.
All we have to do is show you your really crap marketing, Blake. It's correlation does not equal causation, you moron.
Yeah,
Like it's like when people will say, well, could this happen? Well, it's not about could it happen, what's the probability? Like
yeah,
anything could happen. I could get abducted by aliens, but it's severely
yeah.
unlikely.
You can't just look at one element of what was happening in that time span, can you?
But
Know?
the one thing I've always thought when I look at the pictures of them in the basement is that looks so much more fun than being upstairs.
It did, yeah, that sense of community and all of
Yeah.
that as well. So it spiked on August 9th, 2024, the day the film was released, a natural point for a spike in public comment. Ms. Lively further fueled the already brewing firestorm by leaking her CRD complaint to the New York Times in advance of its December 20th filing. The complaint contains sensationalized allegations of SA and misconduct on the set of the film. Oh, now that's saying SA.
Yeah, because what she and I heard somebody talking about this, and they were saying because although she keeps saying, "Oh no, it's SH,"
Hmm.
well, if she's alleging that he was physically inappropriate with her and he kissed her when she didn't want and he
Oh,
blushed
right.
it,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
essentially that is
I say, yeah.
SA.
As
She's
part of,
just it's not what she said, but it's what she's described.
yeah. I don't think she knows the difference necessarily, does she?
I don't think she does.
As part of Ms. Lively's
She
very
can't even tell the difference between reality and fiction. So.
No. As part of Ms. Lively's very concerted efforts to shape the public narrative and sway potential jurors, so she's doing it. Ms. Lively and her counsel have routinely exploited the media to advance their version of the facts. Ms. Lively's efforts to influence public opinion, primarily through her counsel, continue unabated. And I think that's partly coming through her counsel because I don't think she's eloquent enough to do it on her own behalf, and she's not controlled enough.
No, she's not. She's very impulsive.
Yeah.
But also, I actually don't agree here where they keep saying that Freeman's trying to taint a jury pool.
Hmm.
I don't think Freeman ever really intends it to get to jury pool.
No, because everybody says he's a settler, isn't he?
I don't. So I think actually he's got his eye on the prize, which is Justin's reputation,
Hmm.
and you know. Even if Blake wins in court, she will win and she will still have lost. She
Hmm.
can't win this.
No.
So I don't think for a second he's thinking about that. He's thinking about something far bigger.
Hmm. I mean, it's a long time since I mentioned it, but I always thought that Bryan Freedman, if he thought he could make it criminal, he would make it criminal
I still think it will.
if there was a way to do that. Yeah.
I think it will, and nobody seems to have picked up on it. I haven't heard a lot of content creators. It's been mentioned as
Hmm.
in through the reading, but nobody's mentioned that in the response to Blake's latest amended complaint, he
Hmm.
has asked for it to be dismissed.
Yeah.
So that's new.
Yeah.
So yeah, yes, they've still hinted at it going for summary judgment, but he has asked for it to be dismissed because all of the evidence is already out there, and he wanted to clear his name, and I think he feels like it's enough.
Yeah. I think most
So
people feel it's enough, don't they?
they do, and so I think he has asked for dismissal, which was new because
Hmm.
before, when she got hers dismissed and he didn't, everyone was saying, "Well, why didn't he?" And they were like, "Yeah, but he didn't ask."
Just bear with me a second.
Yeah, sure, no problem.
What? Monkey, you're not chewing. I have these little cute little figures on my hearth, and she's picked one up and chewed it.
Oh no!
No, no, no. So where were we? So you've interrupted my broadcast
Oh,
now.
I'm sorry.
No, not you. She can face the wall, face the wall.
Oh.
So yeah, the complaint contains and she's chewing bits. Have you got stuff in her mouth? So it contains sensationalized allegations of essay and misconduct on the set of the film as part of Miss Lively's very concerted efforts to shape the public narrative and sway potential jurors. I'd had read a bit more than that. Yeah, because we talked about her efforts to influence public opinion through her counsel. So, nevertheless, Ms. Lively contends that the Wayfarer parties and Mr. Freedman's efforts to counter the hurricane of negative publicity are a smear campaign which violates Rule 3.6. Do you want to read for a bit, or do you want?
Yeah, sure.
You all right to do it?
I'll just turn the camera.
Up to you. I'm happy
Okay.
to do it if it's easier.
No, it's okay. After am I at point 8? Yeah.
Yeah, point
Okay.
B. Yeah.
After the film's release, the motion of the latest salvo in Miss Lively's relentless war against Mr. Freeman, it comes on the heels of a string of motions circulated to intimidate counsel and to curb Mr. Freedman's statements in defense of his client, referring to Rule 11 sanctions motion against the Wayfarer parties and their counsel, and a subpoena directed at Mr. Freedman's law firm, seeking, among other things, all communications and agreements with content providers from July 2024 to the present. But this is not all. Miss Lively sought to bar Mr. Freedman from taking Miss Lively's deposition, see docket 48, and has repeatedly added gratuitous swipes at Mr. Freeman in a string of motions unrelated to the negative publicity. And that's when we go back to the Vin Diesel thing.
Yeah, I'll just move it up for you.
Because the only reason that she included all of that was to try and besmirch his name. But actually, it just made you look like you had something you were frightened of and you ran to daddy.
Trying to make him look like an abuser, like he was physically violent or physically a threat, didn't she really?
If I had the choice between being punched in the face by Bryan Freeman or having to take my deposition, I'd pick being punched any day of the week. I think that man could do more damage with his mouth. He wouldn't need to. He doesn't need to raise his hand or his voice.
No.
Okay, so the footnote there, it says, August 8th, 2025, the court wisely issued a long overdue order advising that all individuals filing documents in this case not to make submissions using language that is disrespectful to the parties, their counsel, or the court. And that's docket number 581. The Wayfarer parties are hopeful that all parties will comply with this order and cease from the incessant personal attacks on counsel. And obviously, that was initially aimed and directed at Perez.
That's what I think is really, really funny, that he's managed to use something, an order that Perez Hilton managed to get made in order to kind of say to Lively, you're being abusive and you're not allowed to use that conduct. I mean, that will not go down well with her at all, will it?
I don't know what it is, but I imagine the mantra that she will scream over and over again is, "It's not fair."
Yeah. It's not right. It's not fair.
It's not fair. It's not fair. Well, I honestly, there is no money in the world that you could pay me to deal with her.
No.
Which Miss Lively alleges smeared her. So that's before the footnote. So if I
Yeah.
just repeat that
So it
last
was,
bit, so
yeah.
so she's saying that the unrelenting string of
She was
allegations from
flagged.
Mr. Freeman smeared her.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
often
then
find the footnotes are very distracting. I hate when they do it, actually. I know they have to, but I find them really distracting to the flow of the whole thing.
Ezra often only includes them because they're smaller and she can run right more.
Yeah.
So they've then cited all the 10 things that she says that are basically defamatory libelous
Yeah.
statements that Friedman has made against her. So I'll probably summarize them as I'm going along.
Yeah.
So back in February, Bryan Freedman went on TMZ and he predicted that Miss Lively and Mr. Reynolds were going to probably take some legal actions that are beyond the bounds of public decency, and we'll see if they can try and see if they can avoid a deposition. Well, I think subpoenaing 106 content creators is kind of outside the bounds of
Yeah.
public decency.
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In February, in an interview with Billy Bush, Mr. Freeman referred to Miss Lively's complaint and stated that documents don't lie, people do. And I wouldn't want to be on the wrong side of history here. Again,
I always thought that was a funny quote though, because documents do lie. A text message is like not like forensically
yeah,
extracted stuff, but if you're talking about a document can be tweaked, it will like it won't the best thing, but
that's true.
yeah,
Actually, that's
yeah.
true.
So go on.
Um, so and then in
Feb 19.
February 2025, to TMZ, in response to Lively's amended complaint, he said her claims were false, filled with unsubstantiated hearsay of unnamed persons,
Mm,
duh, who are clearly no longer willing to come forward to publicly support her and lacking in actual evidence, as documents do not lie and people do. So we're back to that. But
yeah.
did you want to cover that there? Because I know that when we spoke before,
I didn't know if we'd because we spoke before.
I think it
I've
was
now
before we came
forgotten
on
what we
camera.
actually covered, but we did say this. I think we covered, didn't we, this idea of others. I think we said that once we started recording, this idea
Yeah.
of
So again,
she
it's
can say others, and content creators cannot add others
but we
into
when we
being
spoke
affected.
earlier, we were saying that it's kind of it puts these women in a very vulnerable situation because
Yeah.
she's either making false claims that they can't corroborate and putting them in a difficult position to try and coerce them into telling lies,
Hmm.
or she's essentially outing them for a
Yeah, it's up to
a
them
difficult
whether
situation.
it's up to them, isn't it? Whether they want to report SH of their own, and that requires their own lawsuit, doesn't it? Or their own CRD or whatever it is.
So staying in February and again to TMZ, uh,
I
so
think
no,
we've done
sorry,
that
that's
one.
so
I think it's number 4 you
oh,
want.
yeah, no, number four. So back in, so that's March then, sorry.
Mhm.
Statements to TMZ that Lively's motion to dismiss was an attempt to cover up for the self-concocted disaster she initiated. Well, if the cap fits,
Yeah.
and Miss Lively was a privileged elite, she is, whose motion to dismiss twisted and curated the law to fit her personal agenda in one of the most abhorrent examples of abusing the legal system. I would agree with that, especially with Van Jam.
Mm.
So April 4th, another statement to TMZ. I don't know why he's constantly speaking to TMZ. He's got him on speed dial like it's Perez.
Yeah, well, I
Okay.
think there's only certain ones they do speak to, isn't it? I think she's got a broad sweep of ones, and they just
She
have
does a
like,
lot more with people, doesn't
yeah,
she?
yeah.
He said that Miss Lively was attempting to divert the public's attention from the receipts, actual documentation, video footage, and additional evidence, which Mr. Freeman asserted made it irrefutable that there was no sexual harassment and that Miss Lively's own conduct caused the organic backlash that she received. And Miss Lively does not need
Oh,
discovery to find out who smeared her. Just a mirror will do.
that was like lovely. It was amazing. I think everybody gasped when they read that. Just a
Oh,
mirror will do.
so and then to Lively's pals at People. He said she belonged to a circle of Hollywood elites and is seeking to advance the false and harmful claims and block access to the court system and weaken our nation's constitution to service those who are in a position of power. Well,
And that's what was said basically.
kind of fair.
That
Like
they
that does sound like
that
it does sound.
kind
What does she want him to do? Like come on and be like, yeah, sorry, my client's a liar. Okay.
At the time they instigated all of this, they weren't factoring in. They may not have even realised that Steve Sarowitz was a billionaire, and
No.
he might actually back them up, because prior to that, I think her evidence was, oh, he caves on this, he caves on this, he caves on this. There is no way he's going to fight me. He can't win. And it's, what he's not counted on is the billionaires finally said, F this shit.
Yeah.
We are going to sort this out.
And I think if they value money above all else, they
Yeah.
can't imagine that somebody would be willing to put this kind of money up to protect
Not
his
for
friend.
themselves, particularly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think
Did
whereas
we mention kind of, I can't remember if we mentioned it like during, before the recording or during, how many times this idea of billionaire Steve Sarowitz,
I think it was before, and
billionaire friend,
it's
billionaire,
just been repeated
billionaire.
over and over.
And we did say that's kind of part of that will be envy on Ryan Reynolds' part, that he's not yet billionaire, maybe, or something like that.
And the language that was used was very evocative because they were saying, he's going to destroy them like Israel's destroyed Gaza.
Yeah.
That's a deliberate attempt at trying to create a visceral
Yeah, yeah,
reaction.
and raise some kind of anti feeling about him too, as well, because it's a very divisive issue, isn't it?
And then the next comment is to people in May, where he said that the Madison Square Garden tickets, which was clearly a joke.
Yeah.
June 2025, statement to TMZ.
And as people say, I don't know if it was you reminded me or somebody else, he followed that up with and give the money to
To
devious
charity.
charities, didn't he? Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, he did.
They admit that every time the Lively can.
June 10th, 2025, statement to TMZ. Miss Lively he said that she was afraid to tell the truth, and we're going to see if she's going to appear at that deposition or not. And Miss Lively filed a lawsuit.
How many times did it get put off? 2 or 3, was it?
Yeah, several times. And that Miss Lively filed a lawsuit which, accused some very good people of a smear campaign and accused, a terrific young man of sexual harassment. And she did. There are real victims here.
Yeah.
June 11, 2025, interview with Megyn Kelly podcast, in which Miss Kelly, not Mr. Freedman, stated that Mr. Freedman is waging war against Blake Lively, who he believes is not a good person, and referring to Miss Lively's reputation as a bitch. So that was Miss Kelly did, not Mr. Freedman.
Yeah.
Though those statements were not made by Mr. Freedman, Mr. Freedman allegedly endorsed Miss Kelly's comments and stated that she appeared to be a narcissist. He did say, but he did say he couldn't diagnose her.
I think he said he wanted an expert or something like that.
Yeah, who could not accept how she behaved and how the treatment, how she treated reporters and how she's treated people and how she treats individual and how she's treating waiting staff and others, and saying it's not okay, we don't like you. And in March 2019, statement to People magazine describing Mr. Reynolds' motion to dismiss as arrogant, stating Mr. Reynolds believes that bullying is acceptable and publicly documented that to be a key figure whose fingerprints have been all over the smear campaign against Justin and Wayfarer.
Which we know it's the language as clearly, that whole no more thing, that where he was like ripping out bits of Man Enough and bits of his TED talk, and that whole thing of no more this, no more that, that statement he wanted them to release. And no more was the name of the DV charity, wasn't it, that funds were going towards from It Ends With Us. So he was specifically using no more as an attack on Justin Baldoni, wasn't it?
Yeah, and it just felt so sleazy. It made me feel dirty when I listened to the letter that that they expected him to read, that Ryan had read. And he thinks he's clever. He thinks he's going to go through and he's going to.
I think it is the fact he thinks that's funny, and we'll find it funny.
No, it just screams of Deadpool, and I don't find Deadpool funny.
No,
I find it, as somebody was watching it at Christmas, it was on. I was on my phone, and I just remember looking up and being like, I just feel like I'm sat in a room with a teenage kid. This is just, it's not funny. And then, oh, right. Okay. Miss Lively's motion should be denied. So it says, Rule 3.6 is not an absolute bar to a lawyer's statements to the press. Rule 3.6 applies to extrajudicial statements that the lawyer knows or reasonably should know will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing the adjunctive proceedings on the matter. Rule 3.6, a statement is a civil proceeding. In a civil proceeding, ordinarily is likely to prejudice material and in an adjunctive proceeding when it relates to a party's character, credibility, or reputation, or the information the lawyer knows reasonably should know or is likely to be inadmissible to evidence of at a trial, and would, if disclosed, create a substantial prejudicial risk. So
I'm just going to move it up.
Again, we're back to trying to insert Mr. Ryan Reynolds back into proceedings when he's not even party to the proceedings.
Yes,
And
they still keep dragging him back in, don't they? Like,
yeah, because as much as you want to say is to Ryan Reynolds, you can't sue over hurt feelings. Oh, sorry, what's that? I can't hear you over the sound of your hypocrisy.
Yeah.
Um,
And it basically says that Ms. Kelly is not subject to Rule 3.6 sanctions, and Rule 3.6 applies to statements by counsel, not a silent endorsement in inverted comments. So the
yeah,
third
it's not for him to defend Blake
no,
Lively.
no,
She's not paying his bills.
no.
And
It's not
actually,
like it's not like he could have said, "Oh, I can't call her a bitch," or "I don't think she's a bitch." All he could do was remain silent, basically. Really, be diplomatic, couldn't
yeah,
it?
because as an officer of the court, he's not supposed to lie, and she's clearly a bitch.
Yeah.
So,
You want
um,
you want me to take over for
yeah,
this?
sure.
Okay. I'm just aware it's a bit difficult on a phone, isn't it, for you? I'd be all over the place. So if this
My eyesight sometimes, I've got a functional neurological disorder, so sometimes my eyes go. So my eyes
right,
are okay today, but other times I can't
yeah,
read at all like that. So
right.
just to warn you, but it's
No,
fine today.
if disclosed, create a substantial risk of prejudicing an impartial trial. So Rule 36B 1 and 5 and B5 emphasis added. So that it's ordinarily does not equate to always, and as noted, the first and fatal flaw to Ms. Lively's motion is her failure to show that Freedman's statement will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing the jury. So Ms. Lively fails to present any evidence of a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing the adjudicative proceeding in this matter. As noted, a predicate for Rule 3.6 sanctions is a showing that the statements will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing an adjudicative proceeding in the matter. Ms. Lively's motion is bereft of any, they're often bereft of any evidentiary or other support for the notion that Mr. Freedman's statements will have a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing an adjudicative proceeding. Ms. Lively does not even attempt to make this critical showing, asserting only a single conclusory statement. This court should impose sanctions here because Mr. Freedman's statements pose a significant risk of tainting the jury pool with deceptive, corrosive, and untrue statements cloaked with an illusion of loyally integrity. That's from docket 544, part 10. Ms. Lively focuses solely on the ordinary prejudice that attaches to statements impugning a party's credibility, character, or reputation, ignoring the requirement that the statements must create a substantial likelihood of materially prejudicing the jury. The authority cited by Ms. Lively in support of this theory is sparse and distinguishable. Ms. Lively relies primarily on Seletti v. Carey. However, the Seletti court did not order sanctions under 3.6 or for the lawyer's statements to the press. Rather, plaintiff's counsel was sanctioned under Rule 37b2 of the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure for serial abuses of the discovery, including a failure to comply with the court's order to timely serve discovery responses and for failing to diligently prosecute the case. In sanctioning plaintiff, the court noted that the merits of plaintiff's case were questionable, as plaintiff's counsel appeared more interested in litigating in the press than complying with the court's discovery orders. And that's the thing, isn't it? There's going to be several case filings now where it's just stating the difference between what she's accusing them of and what's likely is, or materially relevant, I would imagine. So the footnote there is Ms. Lively does not argue that Mr. Freedman's statements published evidence that he should reasonably have known was inadmissible. Indeed, at this early juncture, without only a single deposition completed, any determination on admissibility is premature. So they can't really say what's going to be fundamental to the case, I guess, basically is what he's saying. They haven't really I guess until discovery is complete and all depositions have been held and you know what the actual facts are that you can apply law to, we're too early to be talking.
Yeah, I don't he didn't insert new evidence into it. He didn't make specific claims. All he was doing was basically saying she's a liar. That
Hmm.
these claims are false. I don't think he said anything other than that. He might have said it in slightly more colourful ways, but he didn't say anything other than that. Do you mind if I turn my camera off for a bit? Is that okay?
Oh, of course
Just so I
not,
can get
no.
comfortable.
Yeah, certainly.
There you go.
So sanctions, however, were not, as Ms. Lively urges, imposed for council's general strategy to prosecute this action through the media, but for a failure to comply with a discovery order. Ms. Lively also cites Lot v Est in the Southern District of Georgia's local rule. However, the Southern District of Georgia rule differs from New York's version in two significant ways. Georgia rule permits sanctions where a lawyer's public statements raise a reasonable likelihood that such dissemination will interfere with a fair trial or otherwise prejudice the due administration of justice. So I don't think we need to focus too much on all of these
No, that's all the
various.
legalese that people aren't
Yeah,
so
I don't
interested
think
in
it's
that.
that because it's difficult to read because you're trying not to state all the letters and numbers and all of the rest of it. I'm just trying to think of this. So yeah, it's basically saying how statements made in advance as sound bites, basically, from like 8, 9, 10, 12 months before a trial are not proven to taint a jury pool, especially basically a jury pool that's going to be as big as a jury pool based in New York, isn't it? Basically, it's things like that.
Look, and I think as well, as I said earlier, I don't think Freeman has any intent of poisoning a jury pool because Bish, we don't even think it's going to get to trial. If this goes
No,
to trial, it's going to end so badly for you. If you think it was
yeah,
bad for Amber Heard,
yeah.
like so his intention was always to just do what he needed to do to restore Justin's public image, which I think he's done.
Yeah, it's like if it the would he wouldn't have released that website at all if he hadn't felt that it was absolutely vital to change the public narrative because it was getting out of control, wasn't it? It's like there was no defense for Justin unless he did that all
If
along.
if they'd have waited until the conclusion of this case, there'd have been
Yeah,
nothing left.
no.
So it was just if it the judge needed to have it's almost like in those cases where if you're fighting over something that's copyrighted it needs to be paused because actually it will do if it's allowed to continue through the duration of the case it will do irreparable harm and so that couldn't happen here so he took the only steps that he could
Yeah.
and it's a large metropolitan area so the points that he just made there that it was many months ago lots of people the majority of people aren't following this case it's a very I think Candice
We're a
Owens, when
niche
she said there's
audience.
them and there's us,
Yeah,
we're such a small group of people that are following it. We follow it so to the letter of the law. But I can tell you now
yeah.
that people who live in a house with me, they could act on this jury and be impartial.
Yeah, and but yeah, and it's still fine for if they felt that way as well.
Yeah.
So we jumped ahead a little bit. So Freedman's statements were not made in a vacuum. As recognised by the express exceptions to 3.6, lawyers have a right, indeed a duty, to publicly defend their clients.
I feel like that shade at Lyman there where he says, when he said they don't have the right to strike it from the docket, and he said, not only do I have a right, I have a responsibility to strike it from my docket.
Yeah, yeah.
That's what I feel like he's throwing a little bit of shade there.
Quite possibly. Put another way, nothing in 3.6 divests a lawyer of his or her right to defend against adverse publicity promulgated by an opposing party or his or her counsel. In fact, this court has recognised a lawyer's right to speak out. And then it moves to where Aaron Garofalo, they had a live in session thing, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
So basically what the judge said during that was, so if Ms. Garofalo leaves this courtroom and gives her spin on what I've said or what you've said or what she said, that would be picked up. If it was Mr. Freedman who was here and he gave his spin, that would be picked up. Clients do have a right to have their attorney speak to members of the press, particularly in a high-profile case, and give their interpretation. The public has an interest in that also. I wouldn't begrudge you speaking to members of the press, and I'm not going to begrudge Ms. Garofalo doing that. So that was part of that transcript on July 30th. So, and then it's going to move on. Oh, this, so Freedman is here calling Ms. Lively and her lawyers, sometimes euphemistically called spokespersons, and explaining now how they've disseminated a barrage of negative statements impugning Mr. Baldoni and the Wayfarer defendants, alleging, among other things, that Baldoni lied about his long-standing commitment to women's rights and betrayed victims of SA. So then it's moving on.
And that's such a wicked thing to try and attack him with, because I think he
yeah.
genuinely, he cares so much. That's why he did this book.
It's
I just
basically
think
saying everything about you is a lie and a fabrication, isn't it? That's what they're saying basically to him. And we're going to publicly humiliate you for that as well. That's what they're saying. So
the world just needs more Justin Baldonis.
So sexual harassment and retaliation are illegal in every workplace and in every industry. A classic tactic to distract from allegations of this type of misconduct is to blame the victim by suggesting that they invited the conduct, brought it on themselves, misunderstood the intentions, or even lied. He's not even responded, has he ever, to blame shame her in that way, or saying that she asked for it or she dressed for it or anything like that. Another classic tactic is to reverse the victim and offender and suggest that the offender is actually the victim. These concepts normalise and trivialise allegations of serious misconduct. Media statements are not a defence to Ms. Lively's legal claims. We will continue to prosecute her claims in federal court where the rule of law determines who prevails, not hyperbole and threats. So in January, on the 16th this year, Deadline quoted Lively's counsel as saying, "This latest lawsuit from Baldoni, Wayfarer and its associates is another chapter in the abuser playbook. This is an age-old story. A woman speaks up with concrete evidence of SH and retaliation, and the abuser attempts to turn the tables on the victim. That is what experts call DAVO." And again, this idea of billionaire. Wayfarer has opted to use the resources of its billionaire co-founder, Steve Sarowitz, to issue media statements, launch meritless lawsuits, and threaten litigation to overwhelm. It's trying to make out, almost when they keep banging on about that Blake Lively has no funds to compete with it, isn't it? It's trying to put her in the role of poor me, poor victim, isn't it? They are trying to shift the narrative to Ms. Lively by falsely claiming that she seized creative control and alienated the cast from Mr. Baldoni. The evidence will show that the cast and others, and again, this idea of and others, had their own negative experiences with Mr. Baldoni and Wayfarer. Well, they need to speak up then, don't they? So the evidence will also show that Sony asked Ms. Lively to oversee...
Oh, 100%, yeah.
yeah, to oversee Sony's cut of the film, which they then selected for distribution, and it was a resounding success.
But how stupid do you think we are? There was no Sony's cut of the film. There was no Blake Lively's cut of the film. There was only ever Justin's cut of the film, and you stole it.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, it's such fake news. Oh, it makes me mad.
But it's basically their lawyers there speaking for Sony, isn't it, as well? They're litigating there on behalf of Sony, in a way, being a spokesperson for them, as saying that that's factually what happened. Their response to sexual harassment allegations: she wanted it, it's her fault. Their justification for why it's happened to her.
Look, nobody said that. Nobody wanted anything from her.
But that's just literally an excerpt of what generally happens in these types of cases. Yeah. That defendants will say things of this, and they're trying to equate that with what statements Freedman has made in defense of his client.
Yeah, what he said is it categorically didn't happen. Nobody blaming you, Blake, because it didn't happen.
In short, while the victim focuses on the abuse, the abuser focuses on the victim. But I think the majority of us feel that Davo is what Blake's doing, isn't it?
100%.
Yeah. So in a January 21st.
And how do you defend against, if somebody says you didn't do something, that's easy to defend events, because you can be like, well, there's going to be CCTV of me there, or here's a credit card receipt of my petrol or my gas that I got on the way there, or, here's my phone and you can chase my GPS coordinates from that. But if somebody says you did something and you didn't, trying to prove a negative is so
Mm,
hard.
yeah.
And what do guilty people do, or what do guilty people say, or crazy people say? They say, I'm not crazy. No, I didn't do it. So the
Mm,
more you protest, the guiltier you sound. I just so feel for Justin Baldoni. My heart breaks for him.
I know. So, January 21st, Ms. Lively's counsel stated any woman who has been inappropriately touched in the workplace will recognize. Sorry, I'm laughing that that's not funny. It's just her equating it to him. Will recognize Ms. Lively's discomfort. They
Well,
will,
it is funny because it didn't happen.
yeah, yeah. Well, poor Justin.
Yeah, but the one he looks
He was
uncomfortable.
like obliged as part of his contract to have to touch her would have been more his feeling, wouldn't
Oh,
it? Towards the end of this thing, it was like I actually have to touch this, and you could bring into it the fact of the alleged cold sores
oh,
that he had to kiss.
and the stuff in her teeth. Oh,
So they will recognise her attempts at levity to try to deflect the unwanted touching. No woman should have to take defensive measures to avoid being touched by their employer without their consent. And so, what defensive measures did she take? Did she say, "Stop filming, I'm not comfortable, I'm not
but
doing"?
also like literally that's like that's your job. You're there
Yeah,
to film sex scenes and stuff like that.
yeah,
And I'm not saying that that means that people can take liberties, but you have to work with the intimacy coordinator. But oh no, that's right, you didn't want the intimacy coordinator. So, but if that's you can't, if that's like, you know, a you know. A disabled person can say, "Oh, I'd like reasonable adjustments in this job to allow me to do this job," and they can put a
mm,
ramp in so they can get to the building and all the rest of it. But they can't fundamentally, like, if it's a listed building, they're not going to lock it down and build you a new building.
no,
So
no,
if you're uncomfortable with those types of scenes, then maybe that wasn't the movie for you, babe.
yeah. I don't think she was comfortable. I don't think she felt ready to do
No.
scenes and stuff physically ready or in the right mental headspace. She was still breastfeeding and things. It was weird, wasn't it? It must have felt a bit weird. We could give her that bit of grace, I guess, couldn't we?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
And, you know, if she wasn't ready, she just shouldn't have been doing the film.
Hmm.
I think, this is a situation where you look upon yourself and actually you've played a massive part in this.
Oh, definitely.
And
Yeah, for sure. But no, it'll never come. So Feb 5th, Ms. Lively's counsel stated another day, another state, another nine-figure lawsuit seeking to sue Ms. Lively into oblivion for speaking out against SH and retaliation.
oh, she's such a hero.
This is not just a publicity stunt, it's transparent retaliation in response to allegations contained within a SH and retaliation complaint that Ms. Lively filed with the CRD. Feb 18th to deadline. Over the next several weeks, we will move to dismiss the utterly meritless lawsuits brought against Lively and Reynolds, and we'll move full speed ahead with discovery that we expect will reveal shocking details about the depth to which the defendants have sunk in their
It's certainly shocking. It's shocking that never happened.
unending efforts to bury, ruin, and destroy Ms. Lively and her family. And it always bangs on about family. And I always think, who are they talking about when
Ryan Reynolds, Ryan
family?
Reynolds, what about me?
Yeah, it's not, it's, because if she says it's children, then she'll have to prove medically or in some way, records way, how it's affecting her children, how it's affecting Robin Lively, how it's affected her mum or whoever. You know what I mean? But it's this, she gets to say others, family, these broad terms, doesn't she? She seems to get to say that, not give specifics. So Feb 28th deadline article quoted Lively's spokesperson as saying, "What is Bryan Freedman hiding? After promising to release all the receipts, Freedman ran into court to keep secret the phone records of who Baldoni, Heath, Sarowitz, Nathan, Wallace, and Abel were calling during the retaliatory campaign." And I believe that got thrown out, didn't it? Because it
But that
was
was because it was
overbroad.
overbroad and it was overreaching. And they
Yeah.
only applied for all of those because they knew it was going to get thrown out.
Yeah.
So that they could then say, "Oh, you want transparency?" Well, yeah, but there's a difference between, you don't have the right to just go in and invade everybody's lives for all the
No,
years prior.
no. I mean, the things they've asked for along the line They've been absolutely insane in terms of people's location. Everybody that she literally wanted everybody anybody had ever spoken to, didn't she, really? And
Yeah,
every
and she
message.
cherry picks everything, so she can't be
Yeah.
trusted. So you can't give somebody like that the access to all of those records because they will find something. They
Yeah.
will create their own story.
Well, that's been it all along. She's needed as much as possible because she's not defending against something or just saying her piece about what happened. She's constructing it as she goes because there's nothing, she has nothing, isn't it? That's the problem for her. So another Feb 28 statement from a Lively spokesperson stated, in its motion to dismiss, the New York Times correctly calls out Justin Baldoni's lawsuit for what it is, a shameless PR document that has no business in a court of law. For years, Baldoni urged men to listen to and believe women, but when a woman spoke out about his behaviour, he and his billionaire backer, Steve Sarowitz, used, so it's saying this guy has money and he rides roughshod over women, basically, isn't it? Used a social media combat plan to scorch earth and try to bury and destroy her, along with the media who reports on it. These bullying tactics will not survive in court, and everyone should see their meritless claims for what they are. And then going on, so basically they've accused them of things like witness intimidation, putting people's personal security at risk, and again, like, just reiterating how many times they mention it's like Steve Sarowitz's first name is billionaire, basically,
Yeah.
isn't it? You know, Wayfarer Party's attempts to zoom his life into oblivion has only created more liability for them, and deservedly so, given what they have done. So not even allegedly have done. And then it goes into the Taylor Swift of it all. Where to my mind, this is basically Blake still trying to be her representative of women and girls when she says to subpoenaing Taylor Swift, a woman who has given a voice to millions the world over. That to me, that's Blake. When I hear that, this is a very serious legal matter, not Barnum and Bailey's circus. The defendants continue to publicly intimidate, bully, shame, and attack women's rights and reputations, including in the past month seeking to strike down for all a powerful California victims' rights law. So accusing them of trying to take down the.
All the stuff with the amicus briefs, it was so distasteful.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's gone on so long and been so intricate that it would be easy to forget something massive like the number of amicus briefs that came out, wasn't it? So that is that.
It's that was shocking. That was, and I felt like, what did they hope to achieve? What did they want? What was enough for them? Or did they want him to take his own life? Because honest to God, the way they treat it, I just felt very unhappy with,
Mm.
you know, you know,
It was basically you're not allowed to talk at all.
Darvo.
Yeah, yeah. So the disturbing actions by a billionaire, men who made their careers as female allies and their team, continue to show their true colours. Another day, another bogus filing designed for clickbait.
But I
That,
do feel like they have continued to show their true colours. I feel like they could have buried her a long time ago.
yeah, I
I
think
bet they've got stuff that could just really
yeah,
finish this.
I think there's things that they have right now that would literally bury her.
Oh, I agree. I think in the words of Blake, never, they're not showing their teeth.
Yeah. And I do wonder if part of that is Justin doesn't feel comfortable doing that, or whether they're just, because they do know they are dealing with narcissists and that it could take a different turn at any point, they're playing the cards very close to the chest.
I think my own personal opinion is I think he doesn't want that to become who he is. I think
His
he doesn't want to hurt
legacy.
other people. I
Yeah.
think if it comes about in the process of defense, he does what he has to do, but he doesn't want to attack anyone.
Hmm.
I may be wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. So basically, it continues in the same vein, basically, which when you stack them all together like that, does sound an awful lot worse than the things that Bryan has come out and said, because these are playing to vulnerable women's fears, really, basically, of not having legislation that protects them of not being heard, of being d'avoed. Time and time again, this is what basically her side has banged on about. I mean, one of those quoted article headlines there, Blake Lively mocks Justin Baldoni's long delayed HR probe of her sexual harassment claims. So that's alluding to the workplace investigation he set off and going, wasn't it? Was it in January of this year? This that
Yeah, it was
was.
when they made it clear. And you know, I just feel like they've twisted all of this, and it's angered all of the victims. And I've also experienced domestic violence, and don't do it in my name, Blake. Don't
Yeah.
use what we've been through, what
I
we've
think
suffered.
I think that's what's hurt people, isn't it? It's like you're not my spokesperson.
Yeah.
This is not my experience. Your little shilly shally version of SH or SA or DV is not mine.
Like if I had to choose someone to babysit for me out of Blake and Justin 100% of the
Yeah.
time.
And when we're talking like about appropriating women's voices, really, the rest of these on this page I'm looking at are basically at them speaking as if they are Taylor Swift's representative and putting her point of view across. And,
Yeah, it does feel like she steals Taylor's voice at times.
yeah, yeah, and saying exploiting Taylor Swift's celebrity was the original plan in Melissa Nathan's scenario planning document. And it
No,
continues.
it wasn't. They said that they were worried that you were going to activate the Taylor Swift fan
Yeah,
base.
that's it. They didn't say they were going to, did they? Or that they could be used or anything like that. And on the subject of Swifties, I think they've been very wise as Swifties because it's almost like they read Taylor's mind, or there's a secret way you can contact Taylor or she can
I
contact
think
them.
her silence has just been deafening.
Well, I think they think if she's not responding, then there's a reason, so we don't. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, I think they're very smart out there, the Swifties. So basically, it bangs on in the same manner. I kind of we're getting a bit long, aren't we? So I don't want to keep you too much longer, but it's basically Rule 3.6 does not require Mr. Freedman to stand idly by while Ms. Lively and her counsel conduct a transparent campaign to savage Mr. Baldoni, the Wayfarer defendants and their counsel. To the contrary, the express language makes it inapplicable to statements that a reasonable lawyer would believe is required to protect a client from the substantial prejudicial effects of recent publicity not initiated by the lawyer or the lawyer's client, such as the prejudice created by the incessant press releases and interviews published by Ms. Lively and her counsel. So I mean, I think that's like you've said before. I don't know if it was before we started recording. A lot of people's complaint has been how quiet Wayfarer is, and the
Yeah.
docket is quiet. They respond when they absolutely have to, against the weight of how many filings go on there in Lively's defence. I'm just reiterating here how unseemly it is that they attack Baldoni's character by stating that his work to protect women was a fraud and that he is in fact a typical serial sex abuser and defendants are bullies. So I'm just trying to whiz through it to see if there's anything there. Can you spot anything there that you think should be pointed out really?
No, I've listened to it a couple of times already today. I don't think I think we covered the main bits of it, which is basically he's pointing out, it's six of one, half a dozen of the other. Sanction me, but sanction them, or
Yeah.
just tell everybody to play fair. I'm not starting it, but I can't allow them to absolutely decimate my client's reputation and say nothing. I have a moral, legal, and ethical responsibility to defend him.
It's funny, isn't it? Their tactic, if you want to say that they have a tactic right now, is often seems to be, look, if you won't allow us to use it, then we won't use it, or we won't do it to somebody else, but you can't have it either.
Yeah.
In a way, isn't it? It's like we don't need it. You want it, we don't need it. But if we don't get it, you don't get it either, isn't it? It's literally that. And I was thinking more about the whole Isabella of it all, and I don't understand indemnity law, obviously. I'm not a legal expert, but I do feel, I'll just stop sharing for a minute. I do feel that I bet if you had somebody independently assess that part of her contract, I don't think she's legally covered for what they're paying for her.
No, I was listening to Omar this morning,
Yeah.
and so Omar was saying essentially, um, in this kind of law, um, Wayfarer 100% right that yes, we'll cover you for it, but we're not going to write a blank check,
Hmm.
and we're not going to be, so essentially, and also they would only ordinarily be expected to provide cover for her if she is in the lawsuit, but she's
Yeah.
not a named party.
She's
She's
not a
not.
party. Yeah.
So you wouldn't usually do it for somebody responding. So their response of okay, well we'll pick the lawyer and we'll set our terms. Perfectly reasonable.
Hmm.
But
I,
they're trying to then use that as being like, well, it's quid pro quo. But
I think
well, you
literally
don't have bloody lawyers
I
then.
think literally they were just like kind of like with Jenny Slate and a $15,000 bond on her apartment. It was like literally, this girl didn't ask to be in this. She's been brought into it. Let's pay her legal fees. We won't make a fuss. We'll just get on, crack on, do it. And it's been turned into being an entirely different thing. I don't think they're liable to pay for what happened because she allowed herself offset to
Hmm.
be co-opted by Blake Lively and dragged
Yeah,
into this. It didn't happen on set. She shouldn't have been work. She wasn't working with Blake to all intents and purposes on that set. She could have had just passing pleasantries with her.
they could have just said no. They could have just said a hard no. This isn't what the indemnity insurance is for. Sorry, we're not going to activate it.
Yeah.
But it's almost like every time they try and do a niceness for somebody, it blows up in their face.
Yeah.
And I hope it doesn't change them as people. I hope that
I don't think
what
it will.
one of the things I did really like in the messages that we got to read the other day was when I think it was Justin was referring to Steve Sorowitz and he said, we've got to try and remind ourselves of the positive. And so at least we know that earlier in the year they were still trying to do that. But it's quite hard to do when like this is
Mm,
just some serious narcissistic abuse going through the court system.
yeah. Yeah.
It doesn't see I can't see what he could do that would be enough for them.
No. I mean,
So
they want
abusive.
the all the insurance. They want all the details now of everybody else that's suing him, like in terms of the contractual insurance and stuff.
Yeah, and the value of the film and stuff, and the rights to the books. Oh, we know why you want those,
Yeah.
Blake.
Yeah.
And it's a no-win situation, and I feel like they are doing some really, really good things in terms of, not responding. They're obviously being given such good counsel that's
Hmm.
working really well. And somebody was talking about, well, why did they offer Isabella the option to go out? Popcorn Planet was pontificating about it and said, could it be because she's got information that he doesn't want to get out? I actually don't think it's that. I think it was just empathy. I think he's just a nice
Hmm.
person. He was like, it's causing her distress. I don't know if I'd be that nice in that situation if someone had just screwed me over with that letter.
I do think that they know that it might have value, her testimony to them, but they actually don't need it. It's Blake that needs her testimony for whatever tale she's woven into the girl or whatever it is or narrative. They literally believe they can win this on its merits or its lack of merits,
Yeah.
if you like. Yeah.
I think they're ready for summary judgment. I
Yeah.
think it's, we're 10 days out from, certain things being closed down, and then we've just got the finishing up of the depositions, and then I think we'll hear summary judgment. But some people have suggested that up till now, Judge Lyman's just been giving her everything so that when he rules against her, he can say, well, you had everything, you still didn't find it.
Yeah.
I think that's optimistic.
We do try and stay optimistic, sometimes very, very optimistic.
I think the conflict of interests, it's hard to overlook where he is. So
Yeah.
I think the likelihood of him ruling in their favour for summary judgment is quite slim.
Yeah.
I think it'll end up proceeding, and then at that point she's got to find a reason to get out of it. She's
Mm.
going to be pregnant, or you know it's going to start to cause her to have depression. She's going to have to find something because she can't
Yeah.
have this go to court. She'll lose.
I think the one thing I am absolutely sure of, even if she loses, is that there is no way in hell she will ever apologize.
Just don't get that.
Mm.
I don't get it. Like, I think there's a real value to saying sorry,
Yeah,
that you set yourself free as well as the other person.
definitely. Yeah.
And I think you're right. I think that's who
There'll
she
never be
is.
like a public, like if it comes to a settlement, she will never agree to a settlement that includes her publicly or it won't be a public, it'll be a public apology tinged with language that is a dig.
Yeah, even if she was willing to say, well, I can accept that there wasn't sexual harassment, but I was I just had a baby, my hormones, I felt that there was, I can now recognize, she could make those excuses. But you'd never get Justin being like, and I want to include comments where she's woman enough or stuff. He would never do that. He's got such grace.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's the best word for it, really, isn't it, Grace? You either have it or you haven't. It's something you radiate or you don't, isn't it? And great, and you would have to say Blake was graceless, really.
Oh, 100. She's like cack-handed.
Cack-handed.
She's just
Do Americans know what cack-handed is? They'll be off googling.
trying. Oh yeah, it's a very English expression, isn't it?
Yeah.
Cack-handed. But yeah, she has, yeah, she's just completely charmless and lacking in grace. Whereas um I think who he is just, I think people are noticing more and more. And I think that up till now, he could have, there's when you're having very limited interactions with the public, he could have, maintained a mask. But this is the real Justin.
Yeah,
All his friends say it.
couldn't sustain it for this length of time. You'd have said something somewhere to the wrong person, wouldn't you? And you know,
And it's, I don't know if I've said it so far on this call. It might have been when we spoke earlier, but like I said, it does feel like there's an element of, we can't do much to resolve this situation. We can't do to protect him. But, I was always taught that when somebody's in trouble, you try and help. And we can't help, God, please stop writing to the docket, all you people that do it for no reason.
yeah, yeah.
But I feel like us just watching, bearing witness to this as it's unfolded, I think without that, we would have,
Yeah,
it's
nobody.
offered some protection.
Yeah, I don't think necessarily if this hadn't have happened, like the content creator thing, I don't necessarily think people would have believed she was SH'd. But I think they'd have thought, oh, it's just some fluff between people who have too much money and blah blah blah. And that'd be the end of it. And instead, it's turned to Me Too movement, freedom of speech, the very fundamental nature of life, in a way, hasn't it?
It has, and it's the exploitation of certain elements of, you know,
It is David and Goliath and all of
it
the
is.
rest of
And
it.
look at how fiercely protective she is over her own stuff, but yet she feels that it's appropriate to put pictures of Perez's children on the docket. There
Yeah,
is just so little respect for other people's rights.
yeah. Mm. Well,
It's it's a hard one.
I thoroughly enjoyed this. Have you enjoyed it?
No.
I guess we should kind of wrap it up, but all we can say really is please do like and comment, please, and consider subscribing. And people are going to have to watch out for you, aren't they? If you're going to start up your own YouTube channel and give your own. I know, like you're kind of maybe even going to touch potentially on a lot more cases possibly than I am. I'm kind of more ethereal than you are, and you're going to go down
Yeah, maybe.
legal.
I think I'm very interested in kind of processes and the whys and things like that. I'm very interested in the Adelson case, and we've got jury selection at the
Mm.
moment, so it's exciting things, and yeah, so I think it's, yeah, a bit of everything.
Yeah.
Not quite sure.
So basically, when you're sat up or you're ready to go, I can always come back and edit the description on this one, and people will know where to
Yeah,
find you.
I'm probably gonna try and set it up later, but
Yeah.
uh
And you might drop back on with me maybe a time or two.
yeah, should we end this recording and then we can just have
Yeah, sure. So thank you everybody for watching and particularly for staying to the end because we know that makes all the difference. And like I said, please do drop a comment. I try to get back to them all, as many as I can, because I do like this sense of community that we've built
yeah.
up around that, like we've been saying. It's because what has come through in the comments is that because you know what I mean. I'm just a regular girl from Yorkshire. I I have a specifically very interesting backstory, I guess, leaving school at 12 and such, but I'm very much of the little people, I think, and care about the little people and the people that fall through the cracks. And I think what's cropped up through the comments is how many of you feel unseen, unheard,
Yeah.
have been in narcissistically abusive relationships. And they're just so grateful when somebody just even acknowledges that you have a name and a comment to respond to. And that's really important to me. So I do appreciate you all. I'm sure Joey does too. And we will see you later. Thank you for
Thank
watching.
you.
I'm going to see if I can end this now.